Everyone, we'll call the regular meeting of City Council for Monday, August 23rd to order. Our first item this morning is our delegations, and 2.1 delegation is Gaetan Carignan, a resilient specialist from the Community Energy Association, who are in attendance via Zoom to present to Council on a Building a Legacy North initiative and an overview of the BC Energy Step Code. So with that, I will turn it over to Gaetan, and welcome. Good morning, and the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Mayor and Council of Dawson Creek. I'm pleased to be here. I'm just going to share my screen. Give it a moment while it goes into presentation view. There we go. So my name is Gaetan Carignan. I work with Community Energy Association as a resilience specialist. Today, I'm calling in from Fernie, BC on Ktunaxa Amakas, the unceded traditional territory of the Ktunaxa people. But I have lived in beautiful Dawson Creek back in 2008, 2010. I worked for the Ministry of Forest and Range there, and I look forward to visiting soon. Today, I am presenting about the BC Energy Step Code with support of BC Hydro and in collaboration with CHBA Northern BC chapter. So I'd like to talk about today the BC Energy Step Code, the Building a Legacy North initiative, some northern case studies of some energy efficient homes that are being built up in your region, and hopefully we'll have a bit of time for discussion. So I'm sure that many of you have heard about the BC Energy Step Code. It's a provincial regulatory pathway for improved energy efficiency in new construction. It's a change in the building code toward quantifiable energy efficiency targets. And so the performance pathway of the STEP code differs from the previous prescriptive pathway in three main ways. One, it's going to require energy modeling and the involvement usually of an energy advisor. There is always airtightness testing of the final product, and there's quantification of the mechanical and heating needs of the building that's being built. Step 3, as you can see on this chart, is 20% more efficient than the current BC Building Code from 2018, and it will be mandatory province-wide by December 2022. Right now, in the voluntary adoption stage of STEP Code, there are a lot of incentives available for builders and for clients who are building new homes. And so this table shows what some of the utilities in the province are providing. For a Step 3 home, it starts at $4,000 and goes up from there. There's also money that goes towards the energy modeling and testing by a qualified energy advisor. And I'm going to get into a project by CHBA Northern BC that's are also providing incentives to builders to get into this and to learn the process a little bit early. So why do we want to support early implementation? We've learned from our work in the East Kootenays in particular and other parts of the province supporting BC Step Code implementation that is providing an opportunity for incentives and education and familiarity with the process. So the Step 1 of BC Energy Step Code is the same as what is in code now, except that we add that energy modeling component and we add the airtightness, and the people that are building these homes can see where they're at. It's a signal to market. So energy advisor capacity is something that comes up in the north and rural communities a lot. It gives a chance for those people to get trained up and start their businesses and to be available for builders now and in the future. It also signals to suppliers and trades and contractors that this is coming and to start looking at what will need to change in their business models. And of course, it means better homes sooner for residents. So the Building a Legacy initiative came out of our work in the East Kootenays. The East Kootenays, we've been doing since 2017 multi-stakeholder training, knowledge and peer learning. So what does that mean? It's meant a lot of in-person building science workshops, all around the region. We've done building official training, we've done realtor training, we've done public showcases. We've developed a lot of case studies that's available on one of our websites that I'll show you later. And it's also meant policy and communication support for our local governments here. And so people took notice of that initiative and the success of it in the East Kootenays. Lots of early adoption here, and lots of high quality building happening. And we know now that what works. And so we're bringing that to the north and rural regions of the province as well. So to date, we've been hosting the Northern Local Government Peer Network. And so that is building officials, planners, any staff in local governments in the north getting together and talking about your specific context, some of the challenges and barriers and opportunities, and how to move forward with step code in the north. We also have the Building a Legacy Toolkit, which we created from our work in the East Kootenays, which has policy examples, different communications examples, resource links, recorded webinars, etc., for training in builders, training building officials. Is a wealth of material there that's available. And then specific to the north, we also have the Step Code Accelerator funding. So I mentioned this is fully funded from BC Hydro, and CEA is helping, our Community Energy Association is helping to bring this to the north. We have up to $10,000 per northern subregion to address any barriers that you might see. So for example, the city of Terrace approached us and said, we're having a difficult time because we don't have the blower door equipment, which is pictured here on the right of this slide. We don't have the blower door equipment. We want to do some training in our region, or we want to do this air tightness testing, but the nearest equipment is really far away from us. How can you help us? And so we actually sponsored them to get this equipment for themselves. It was 80% paid by us, 20% paid by the city of Terrace, and now they have that equipment that they own. They can use however they like, if it's training or if it's their building officials going on site, or if they want to loan it out to someone who's a qualified individual to be able to use that and do that necessary air tightness testing. That's just one example. If the Northeast, Dawson Creek, Fort St. John, Fort Nelson, saw some other type of barrier that they wanted to address and use some money from us to do that, we are open to having that discussion with you. So far, this Building a Legacy North, we've hosted a Step Code Solutions for Northern BC in collaboration with CHBA North. So that was an online webinar. We had 90 attendees, primarily builders and contractors. I believe part of your agenda package shows the summary of Building a Legacy North to date. So we had that webinar, had lots of builders come in and present their case studies that they've been doing. We've also been hosting the Northern Step Code Peer Network, as I mentioned. So that's the local governments. So far, we've had in the north, so far we've had 70 participants across 3 different workshops, identifying barriers and opportunities. And as I mentioned, that Step Code Accelerator funding that Terrace has already taken advantage of. So what are we hearing from the north? The three key takeaways to date. Most builders in cold climates are already achieving that Step 2 or Step 3 of the Step Code. Why is that? You live in a cold climate, just like we do in the East Kootenays, but even harsher. Your clients are going to know when you have a leaky cold house that's uncomfortable in January. And so your builders are already building to a high standard. When they go through this process and they get it quantified what they're already doing, they're typically already building at least at a Step 2, if not Step 3. And what they're finding to get to that, maybe bring themselves from Step 2 to Step 3, is to pay closer attention to air tightness. There also, Step Code will become, we know that Step Code is going to become part of the building code province-wide by December 2022. And that performance pathway of the Step Code is going to require the involvement of an energy advisor. Dawson Creek's in a good position. You have Angel Heinrichs, who's based in Fort St. John, who's really close, and that you've got that local capacity, but also energy advisor licenses are nationwide. And so if you need energy modeling done and the local person couldn't do it for you, they can come on site and do perhaps the air tightness testing, but you could get it modeled anywhere in Canada. So here's some resources and training. There's a provincial website, energystepcode.ca, and also we've created a specific website for the Northern region, the Building a Legacy North link is provided there. So there's case studies, those recorded webinars that I mentioned, and associated resources. So I see I'm at 9 minutes and 15 seconds on my screen here. I wanted to quickly go through a couple of Northern case studies that CHBA did and just mention that they're doing it again. So they're paying for builders to go through this process. They're paying for the energy modeling. They're paying for them to see that it's not so darn scary and to go through it for the first time. So what did they say from last year's participants? I was already building to step 2 and I didn't know it. It wasn't that scary. Builders in the north are already building tighter homes. I always use an energy advisor now. Step 3 should be the minimum right now. And it was minor changes and not a huge cost to increase to step 3. So in that recorded webinar I mentioned that was done from builders in the north, they said to go from step 2 to step 3, it cost them about $3,000 in extra insulation. And they, with the incentives that are available right now, that was paid for. I'm just going to skip here. This is all of these case studies that were done in the Prince George region, Fort St. John. There's CHB North has all of these case studies available for you. But I just wanted to mention quickly, my ask for today is that Dawson Creek consider early implementation of the step code to support your industry in getting used to the process. If you adopt step 1 by January 1st, 2022, that gives your builders a year to get used to things before things get real at step 3 by December 2022. And so if you can direct your staff to work with me, I would be happy to do so. It's fully funded. I can help with things that have already been implemented in other communities and what's working, and also help to customize it to Dawson Creek's specific needs. And with that, I thank you. I see I'm over by 1 minute.
Thank you so much, Gitan, and we appreciate the information and presentation. So with that, I'll pass it to council. Any questions, comments? I think, honestly, in reviewing the presentation, there's got some real, I think, interesting components to it for us, and we will absolutely bring it back into our agenda under Mayor's Business and bring it forward and provide some direction to our staff. Councillor Earl?
Thank you, Worship, and thank you for your presentation today. It does have a great deal of information. One of the areas where we're currently challenged, I guess, with respect to initiatives like this is on the flip side of more energy efficient buildings. We also have several initiatives we're undertaking to provide more affordable accommodations to people, specifically seniors, people with developmental challenges and whatnot. So there's a certain segment of our community who sees the costs associated with this as counterintuitive, not to, and that's a challenge we always deal with is, we understand the need to be more energy efficient, but at the same time, this does inevitably drive up the cost of housing for the people that are least able to afford it. So just that, I think, is one thing we need to get a better handle on as we work our way through this. And then secondly, looking at the peer network deep dives and that page, I do see that of the 90 plus people who attended, 8% were from the Northeast. And I know in our own experience in updating our zoning over the last couple of years, reaching out to developers and getting them in a room and getting engagement proactively, as opposed to hearing from them about what they don't like after the fact, has also been a challenge. So I was hoping that 8%, I was hoping you would have had better luck with that than we did. But if that 8%, I guess, probably translates into 7-8 people, which is pretty typical of what our experience was in the zoning. So I think that's going to be something we're going to need to address as well. But thank you for your presentation, and it is something we all need to be mindful of.
Thank you. Anything further from council? Thank you. So, Gaetan, again, thank you for bringing this to us this morning. Obviously, the BC Building Code and the step code changes that are coming, we have been involved in with our General Manager of Development Services over the last number of years. And so we appreciate you being here this morning. We'll bring it back to council for direction under Mayor's business. Thank you again.
Thanks, Your Worship.
Our next item this morning is a late item with a delegation request. So I'd like to ask council for a motion to approve the late item to allow the delegation to proceed. Councillor Dober, second Councillor Kemp. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. So at this point, we will invite the delegation, Michelle, to come forward to the delegation table. Good morning. Yeah, there it is right there. And
You have to forgive me, I didn't realize I could come and present in person, so it's sort of a late.
Sure.
And I apologize for not having things to you sooner.
no problem.
With COVID, things have certainly changed our world.
Thank you.
So, first of all, good morning. I am
Good morning.
Michelle Pickett. I am here, I am the executor of my parents' estate, Ron and Donna Stanek. I had sent a letter in July, requesting for some help with the backyard as the Chamberlain Park is eroding at a quick pace and starting to take my parents' yard with it. So I'm hoping that you'll take some time to review. So I'm going to start with the first two pictures. This was the property when my parents bought the place. I realized some of this is Chamberlain Park. My mom and dad always took care of it, mowed the lawn, did the weed care, etc. The city never had to worry about it. The second part, my mom loved her flowers, so a beautiful flower bed, as you can see. Now we're going to flip over to the next page. This is what we have now. The backyard, the Chamberlain Park has fallen and is starting to erode my parents' property. The next page is what was once my mom's flower bed. Now some of it is in the park and continues to erode. The next page is a great picture from the back of the property looking onto Chamberlain Park and to my parents' property. My heart breaks when I look at this. This is really, really devastating what's going on there. Continuing on, the white stake is the portion of property that was proposed to my mom now, who was a widow, to purchase from the city. That was the offers to purchase that has been going on since, I believe, 2019. I wasn't in on the beginning, so I can't really, I don't have much to go on with this. So, but it is taking its part on the lawn. The next page, page 7, is a top view of the erosion going on. Pretty soon, that lovely tree that they planted in 2009 when they first moved to that property will be in the creek, or in Chamberlain Park. Number 8, page 8, is a hole that is now along the back of the property. No words can, I'm at a loss for words on this one. My brothers have tried to, haul in backfill, and it just erodes as soon as they haul it in. So the next page, page 9, again, that is on the far side of the property, part of the proposal to purchase. Page 10, this is an interesting page, and I hope everyone takes just a moment to have a look at the line that's drawn on there. That is the property that was proposed to my widow, 82-year-old widowed mother to purchase from the city. I'm really at a loss for words. I can't imagine that this would be a good deal for anyone. In the agreement, I'm not sure if you've taken, I know that there's been a couple agreements, and maybe there is even a new one that we're not aware of. But in the original offer to purchase agreement, I'm not sure if anyone's had an opportunity to read it as counselors. Have you had an opportunity?
We would direct our administration through the policy
Okay.
to ensure that we follow up a process for the purchase of the property. So it wouldn't be a council individually that we would review those specific individual purchase agreements. That's
Okay.
up to administration,
Okay.
Michelle.
So there is a very unique quote in there, flood hazard covenant, which, I couldn't get my head around. So I phoned the insurance company that insures this property, and no, they weren't aware of it. The city official told me, well, it only applies to the property that you're purchasing from the city. This property, that's what the flood hazard covenant applies to. So then I went to Google and Googled what, trying to get a grasp of what that phrase means. And this is what I found out. To ensure the application of floodplain standards and requirements and a waiver of liability in favor of the city in the event of damage caused by flooding or erosion. The damage has already been caused. The erosion is there. So why would we sign off on that and purchase that property? So on the next page, and I think that you have the big one now. That was from my, I haven't seen that one actually, but you can see, okay, thank you. 1820 is the property number. You can see how the erosion has changed the flow of the creek. Now creeks this is a natural occurrence of a creek. The erosion will change the flow of the creek. And it is constantly changing. So unless there is something installed there that the creek will hit to stop the erosion from occurring, it is going to continue. Right now, it is only affecting my parents' property in this kind of devastating condition, but it is going to continue, in my opinion, to erode and probably affect other people's property. But I'm not an engineer, so I can't say that for sure. So, in closing, we are once again approaching the city in hopes that we can find a way to stop this from occurring. If you want us to continue with the agreement, with the offer to purchase, what are we purchasing? A problem? I just don't understand why this would even be considered by the city to offer it to a senior citizen to buy this problem. We would like to see some sort of shoring installed to help with the erosion. And I realize that we have missed the timing for the fish window, et cetera, because that's a very, a few weeks in, I think, the end of July, beginning of August. But I have been told that there can be an application sent in to just give me a sec here. Oh yeah, now that we have missed the window, I've been told that the city can apply for a change approval or submit notification of in-stream work to the province Ministry of Environment as there is problems or as this is destroying personal property. So we initially were asking for our non-refundable deposit back because that offer is stale dated. There was a 90-day clause in, I think, March of 2020, and we're far beyond that. There might be another offer to purchase that we haven't seen. I'm not sure. So we would definitely consider looking at an offer to purchase, but we would want this to be usable property and safe property to purchase from the city. Thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate you listening to me, listening to our concerns. And I also encourage, because these pictures don't really show what's going on there. If anyone wants to come and have a look at that, we would love for you to come and have a look at this property. I will personally walk you along there to see what's going on.
Thank you, Michelle.
You're welcome.
So just for the history in this, Chamberlain goes back a number of years now for council. We became aware of a number of encroachments of infrastructure and things being built that were encroaching into the park. And so we met with the residents over a number of times down there to try to find a solution to it, rather than just arbitrarily saying, everybody, you got to move some of those encroachments out. And that began the road for us in terms of saying, is there a way for us to facilitate perhaps purchasing some of the properties for some of the residents who may be interested in purchasing those properties that had encroachments. Some of them were pretty significant, and it would have been really expensive for the residents. So it was a method for us on behalf of council and the city to try to help facilitate that for those residents, and thus began the process. And so once we got to the approval by the province that we're able to sell, first of all, parkland, that it requires a process to go through to be able to sell parkland that's owned by all of the residents of the city. Once we crossed over that, then it began the process of trying to, first of all, define the area, get that survey done to ensure that we had an identification of the properties in terms of how and what we could do to sell those properties, that portion of those properties, to those residents who were interested in it. And we appointed a land agent, I guess, to handle that for us, to be able to reach out to all of the property owners. Some took us up on it, some said, no, we're not interested. And there we've been going down the road over the last 2 or 3 years. The allocation of the costs, so we had to pay for the surveys, we had to pay for the costs of land title and all of those, and that's why we had to define a non-refundable deposit for those that were interested in it, because that cost was, and it wasn't even all of the costs, but those costs were shared amongst those who were interested in the purchase of that property, Michelle. So that's how we got to where we are today. And so we appreciate you being here this morning, and I just wanted to give a little bit of background, and we'll pass it over to council. Anyone have any questions?
Can I just say
Sure,
one thing
absolutely.
about that?
Yeah.
We do know that we do have an encroachment on your property, and it's a building on skids, so we will be moving
Yeah,
that. That is no problem. But it's still, I mean, there's still the erosion taking place.
Sure. Yeah. No, I completely appreciate that, and it wasn't anything. I was just trying to give a little bit of background for folks who
are
are listening and
familiar with that.
watching us online to be able to understand the background of where we got to today.
Right. And in your package, there is also some letters from residents. This all happened on Friday, so, I haven't had time to walk through the area and actually get more letters, but there is some letters from people that are aware of what's going on in the property, and I hope that you take the time to read those.
I saw them in the package,
Yeah.
and appreciate that information, feedback from those residents. So
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you.
Council, any questions? So thank you, Michelle. We will bring it back under mayor's business, and council will give direction to our administration on your request.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your
You're
time,
welcome.
and have a great day.
Yeah, and you as well. Thank you for being here. Item 4 is new councillor business. First item, Councillor Parslow, 4.1.
Thank you. I'd like to put forward the following motion. and then speak to it if I get a seconder. That staff be directed to develop a revised permissive tax exemption policy that considers the following. 1, a cap be set on permissive tax exemptions for non-city-owned property for the 2022 to 25 fiscal years at 85% of the 2021 amount. And that an option for council to establish a partial permissive tax regime, a ceiling of $5,000 for all categories, and criteria for full and partial permissive tax exemptions.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for the motion? Councillor Javetkov. Go ahead, Councillor Parslow.
Okay, I gave a written preamble that is before you. I've been struggling with this permissive tax exemption issue for quite a while, and I know that we very shortly will be struggling with the development of our next year budget. And I firmly believe that a practical approach to our budget is that we consider all factors of the city operations. The city's, in my opinion, the city last few years has done a great job of looking at this budget issue, and we will continue to be challenged. So when I was reading the work done by the city of Fort St. John, there were a number of features there that I was drawn to. There were some features that I didn't understand, and there's some features that I don't think the direction to go. But I have researched all this stuff. I have had a conversation with our finance officer and CAO, and I noted with interest that in the Ministry of Finance guidelines, a council can establish a cap. A council can have a regime of partial permissive tax exemptions. And there's other ways sometimes of capturing the need to support certain community endeavors through an agreement that is not a permissive tax thing, but it's a standalone agreement. And a good example of that is how many municipalities support golf courses. The idea of a cap, right now, has been my observation, without any direction to the contrary by council, that anytime an eligible new venture comes before council, we add that to the permissive tax exemption. I suggest that we need to put a lid on this and establish a fund that serves as the base, and then have a procedure whereby we can allocate from that fund. I've suggested 85% be the amount, and the reason I chose 85% rather than the 80% that the city of Fort St. John adopted was that we have been negotiating renewed lease agreements with a number of organizations whereby we cut their revenue by 15%. So that's where I got that from. I believe that we will have pressure for more permissive tax exemptions. I recall one organization wanting to have all the houses that they own tax exempt. We will hopefully have some good development for the community at the former Grandview School, but I can see again more permissive tax exemption requests. The principle, I think, is that everyone benefits from the services that the city provides, whether it's protective services, improved roads, sidewalks, etc., and every organization should support that to a degree. places of worship have statutory tax exemptions. That they're not, they're standalone and they are automatically granted. My suggestion is that, again, city-owned facilities not be captured by this. It is all the other remaining permissive tax exemptions. I think it's true to say that we live in quite a dynamic community and arrangements and configurations change. We had the O'Brien School bought by the Network Ministries, and they provide a very valuable service in our community. That operation, and I haven't stood outside to monitor it, but when I've visited it when it was at its former location, it was extremely busy and was operating, and I'm guessing here operates at least 5 days a week. There are other facilities, such as the Narrowton Friendship Center, which operate providing service throughout the week and properly at weekends. But then we have other places that I venture to suggest that the facility may be just used for after worship social interaction. We've got a real variety, and I think we need to establish some criteria. At one end, we might want to give the full 85% tax exemption for a place such as Narrowton or Network Ministries, to another 50. And I think one of the measures that we adopt is how many days in the week are these places being used and for what. I believe that also we in the current policy we have sort of or it might be in the bylaws, we have certain places being given permissive tax exemption to a cap of 15,000, others to 10, and others to 5. And I really question that and think that we would be much better off for having a constant cap of $5,000. So this is policy, a policy suggestion, and I haven't got into what the criteria might be for full or partial exemptions. I think that's something for staff to wrestle with. But I think in the application for permissive tax, we need an explanation of how many days in the week that facility is used for social services or outreach.
You have 1 more minute to conclude.
Thank you very much. Yep. And the option for partial permissive tax regimes, there could be a sliding scale. It doesn't have to be all at 85%. Some might only be at 25%. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Further comments, further discussion? Councillor Javetkov? Sorry, who is, yeah, Councillor. Councillor Earl?
All right. I got in there first, or what? Are we talking me or Darcy? All right, I'll go. These are all very interesting. I do, my concern obviously is that we've got interviews with organizations beginning next month. And when we're what appears to be 10 feet from the finish line after a couple of years of work on these policies to go back to formula, I don't know. And I mean, back of napkin math, I think the city forgoes currently about $145,000 annually. So to reduce that to 85% of that would save us 22 grand. There is, I do think, as we move into giving people some criteria around what to expect when they apply for it isn't an awful thing, but from a bureaucratic standpoint, how we're going to monitor how many days it's in use for this purpose or that, that seems untenable. And I mean, a ceiling of $5,000 Once again, I don't think the vast majority of properties applying for aren't going to be impacted by that. But my main concern about this is it's just kind of showing up at the 11th hour. I do appreciate Councillor Parslow's work, and I am aware of what our neighbors in Fort St. John are doing differently, and there are some merits to that. And I would just really quickly, and I'm sure the councillor misspoke, but I do want to mention with respect to how we've dealt with city-owned facilities run by nonprofits, we haven't cut anyone's revenue by 15%. We have, as a cost recovery mechanism, we are reducing the city's subsidy to those organizations by 50%, 15%. That's the goal. I just want to, for anybody watching, make that clear. But yeah, I guess for future budgets, it's one thing to look at, but I do fear that we're going to, after having spent the last 2 years telling all the nonprofits in town we were going one way and asking staff to do work based on this model, that to pivot at the 11th hour is just confusing and costly and is going to frustrate a lot of people.
Thank you. Councillor Javetkov?
So I have to compliment Charlie on going through the exercise to do the analysis on these permissive taxes. It's a complicated issue, and I know myself. I've looked at it, and I've looked at the formula that we've approved before, with the 15% or 15,000, 10,000, 5,000. And trying to rationalize it, and trying to come up with something better or different. It's complicated, and it needs to be analyzed thoroughly. This is not to do with the presentations that we're going to have here in a couple of weeks. This is to do with the formula that we're dealing with now, that we've already approved, and it's modifying it or amending it. So I don't think it has any impact on the presentations. The presentations will happen, and we'll decide whether or not we allow somebody like the Nowickin or Networks to get permissive tax exemption. That's a separate issue. The permissive taxes have been escalating ever since I started here, because we're generally nice people. We're generous, a mayor and council. So we, adopt more permissive taxes, and gradually, the rate, the cost goes up to the taxpayers. And like it was stated, all of the services that the city provides are paid for by taxpayers. So if one entity doesn't pay their share, it has to be shared amongst the other taxpayers, including the taxpayers that can't afford the taxes that they're paying now and are forced to do something different. So I guess I like the idea of having some kind of control on it, on the formula, and looking at the formula that we've already approved with the 15,000. There are none of those taxes that are more than 5,000 now. So we're adopting a level far into the future. I mean, the permissive taxes will be increasing far into the future to get up to that 15,000. So putting a 5,000 cap on it, I think, is a good idea, and capping it from the perspective of the cost to the taxpayers. With the issues that we're having with budgeting right now, and the position that we've got ourselves into, I think we have to look at all of these opportunities. So I support the motion, and look forward to actually getting some control, because it is a complicated issue, like I say, and for the average person to sort of look at it and try and analyze it, it's not easy.
Thank you. Councillor Dober?
Thank you, Worship. I had a couple things. One, I guess, like, I understand the premise of tax exemption and, the city's shape, but I look at a couple things. One is we're potentially, taking some funding from local organizations that give a lot back to our community. So if, we put a cap in and they got to come up with money, where's that money coming from? It's coming from our community. It's our businesses, our people, our residents are going to be paying that. The other part of it is if we're so concerned about the shape of the city and balancing things, I recall one of my first meetings in a closed meeting, so I'm not going to bring too much up, but there's a multi-million-dollar business in our community that its property line is jaggeded out of our community, but use all the city services. So, if that's what we're doing as a whole, like this should be, we should go in with that mind frame on every decision we're making. We're potentially going after, nonprofits that offer a lot to our community when, we're allowing some businesses that, are profitable businesses, we're not putting them in the same category. So that to me doesn't sit well. It's not the way I do business or I would do business. I think if we're doing one for one, we do it for all. I'm appreciative of this report, Councillor Parslow. It's nice to have it laid out like that, but I personally don't feel that there should be a cap and that this is a lot of time, for city staff to go in to create something. I don't know the whole policy and how it works. So, but yeah, I just think if we're going to do one, we do it for all, and we're consistent with what we're doing. And if it's about building a better balanced budget, then we should look at all areas and not be concerned about what the public thinks. And because at the end of the day, if we do what's right for our city, they'll respect that decision whether they agree with it or not. So that's.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Parslow. Or, sorry, Dober.
Excuse me, through your worship.
yes.
Councillor Wilbur also would like to speak.
Thank you. Councillor Wilbur, go ahead.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be joining you guys from the sunny Coast Salish territory. It's beautiful here right now. I'm happy to support Councillor Parslow's motion. And regardless of if it's the 11th hour or 1 minute before the 12th hour, we need to explore all options. This is something that we've been discussing I'm in my third term, and we've been discussing this since I first got elected. And I think we need to look at all options. And I do not believe that the taxpayers can continue to carry the load for massive tax exemptions. I think we have to be responsible, and by doing so and looking at all options, we are doing what the people elected us to do. So I'm happy to support this, and thank you, Councillor Parslow, for putting in the work to do it, because I know you were thorough, and I'm happy to see that you've listed several different items to be looked at that have been discussed in the past. So I will be supporting this motion.
Thank you, Councillor. So we'll add my comments to it. We have passed the bylaw. We've been working on the bylaw now for 2 or 3 years to put this policy. We have put this policy in place. We've been working on it for 2 or 3 years. We got it delayed over the last 2 years as a result of COVID. We have scheduled meetings with community groups. As we adjust or amend the policy, that could have impacts on other community groups who haven't yet indicated that they want to meet with us, because by changing the policy, that could change the impacts on other groups that haven't expressed an interest to meet with us, or those that are meeting with us now. And so the policy is one that council has the ability to amend at any point. We can also add anybody to that list. That's a council decision. When somebody applies for permissive tax exemption, they are impacted by the policy, but it's council's decision as to whether those properties are then added to the permissive tax exemption list. And so my concern today is that we have scheduled meetings. We need, by moving it forward and by changing it any further in the future, we are going to delay, we talk about making changes to it, that everybody's paying for this. Well, it will then potentially impact us in implementing this for the 2022 tax year. And so I guess that's my concern. We've been working on this for now a couple of years, that we've got this policy in place. We have had it supported by council up to this point. We've got groups that are now coming to engage with us to talk about those changes, and my concern is at this stage to make further amendments to it. So that's my concern. I'm going to give Councillor Parslow one last opportunity to speak to it as he moved the motion, and then we'll be calling question on the vote.
The purpose of the people coming to meet with us, I think it's September the 13th.
That's right.
Is to explain why they, correct me if I'm wrong, is to explain why they should receive permissive tax exemption. It's not how much a permissive tax exemption, it's that they should be eligible for it. That's the purpose. I don't see that this policy would change the purpose of that September the 30th meeting. I stand to be corrected, but I don't see how it affects the September scheduled meetings.
Can we, so we'll just ask administration, because it's my understanding groups will be impacted. They may stay on the list, but they'll be impacted in how much money they pay,
Oh, yeah.
right? Flavia?
So through your worship, I would like to just give a background about this new policy that was just approved and the forms request and the results of this meeting. So early in the year, like we've been presenting this policy for a couple of reports in the last 2 years. And then when we send the form for the organizations to fill out, we did present to them those that potentially would pay taxes based on the new form. And then we did ask them if they would be interested to come for the delegation when we set the date. So majority of those organizations that are coming are the ones that potentially will be paying taxes under the new policy. In addition to that, we had the meeting, and then 3 additional organizations were included because we also would like to, council would like to analyze it if they should still be either in the list. So that's how the list of the delegation for September 13 is was decided. So by coming to this new policy, the suggested changing on the policy, the question is, there will be now organizations that were not paying taxes under the approved policy that will be paying taxes, that they will not have the chance right now to know what would be the impact, because when we originally discussed with them, we sat under the old. Would they be able to come to this meeting? Do I need to calculate quickly a number to determine the impact and then come to them and say, would you like to come on September 13 and make a presentation and put your comments? There is a short time for me to also put this report together to determine the impact for the meeting on September 20, and then we have the deadline to send to BC assessment how we're going to perform that. So there is a lot of things happening. I understand the whole concern, but there is a timing here that's going to affect also my work. So I would appreciate the understanding on that too.
Thank you, Flavia. Councillor Parslow, go ahead.
Yes, concerning some of the comments that were made, you know, I was very friendly with the late Ken Borick, and very successful businessman. And, you know, when I was faced with the significant challenge of budgets with the school district, his advice to me, watch the pennies, they add up. $20,000 may seem a very small amount, but if you keep working away, it translates into a large amount of money. And I say right now we have a system that is basically open to anyone who believes that they meet the qualifications. And I don't think that's a good way of doing business for the benefit of the total community. The criteria, as I say, I just feel that we need to tighten this whole area up, and it's to me from my vantage point, a simple thing to establish some criteria. I would be taking the word of the applicants. I wouldn't see us having a monitoring system if they put in a written application and they justify their permissive tax exemption request by stating that they operate 5 days a week or what have you, or 3 days a week. I would accept that. So I don't see any monitoring at all. And I don't understand the difference between a drop in revenue and a drop in subsidy. I think they're synonymous. Thank you.
Thank you. And if I can just, thank you, Councillor Parslow. I just want to clarify for Council one point, because it's not clear in my mind. The time that we need to get the permissive tax policy and the formula to BC assessment is by what date? End of October? So by having, we need to have this policy for the end of October for the 2022 tax year. Sorry, go ahead, Flavia. I'm sorry.
So through your worship, the policy can be determined in time, but the policy will result in a bylaw that must be adopted by October 31st.
Right. And that has to be for them for the tax year 2022 for us to calculate the revenue and costs.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. So with that, I'm going to, good discussion, and I want to call the question. All those in favor of the motion? All opposed? Motion's defeated, 4-3. Thank you. Other new councillor business. Councillor Parslow, go ahead.
I must say how delighted I am with some of the new infrastructure that's going in. I took a drive on that road that's to the east of the hospital, and then I looked at the paving that's going on in front of the City Hall here on the west side and the sidewalks, and I just think the improvement plan on our roads and the sidewalks is it just makes the city look a much more appealing to me. So I would maybe a little facetious for me, but I did share with Kevin. It was so nice to drive on a piece of road that wasn't wavy or bumpy, and I'm referring to the piece east of the hospital. And then, of course, I looked at the work going on 8th Street and the bridge on 102nd. It's just some significant work going on, and it's all in the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other new councillor business? Item 5 is minutes. So we have the adoption of our minutes for the public hearing of July 19th for adoption. Move. Councillor Earl, second. Councillor Dober. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. 5.2 is the minutes of the regular meeting of council for July 19th. Sorry?
Oh, I'm sorry. I just have a question. Can Councillor Dober second the minutes if he wasn't in attendance?
No, you're right. Thank you, Councillor. Yeah. Do I have a seconder for those minutes? Councillor
I'll second them.
Wilbur, thank you. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. And the minutes of our regular meeting of council for July 19th for adoption. Move. Councillor Earl, second. Councillor Javekoff, thank you. All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. 5.3, the minutes of our special meeting of council for July 29th for adoption. Councillor Kemp, second. Councillor Earl, thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Business arising? Any business arising out of any of the minutes for anyone? Item 7 is our correspondence, and we have a letter and report from Peter McCartney, climate campaigner from the Wilderness Committee. Councillor Javekoff.
Receive for information.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Parslow. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. 7.2, we have a letter from Mona McNally, Step Up and Ride Society, regarding the financial hardships faced by Step Up and Ride. Councillor Parslow.
Move that we receive for information.
Thank you. Second. Councillor Earl. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. 7.3, we have a letter from David Johnson, resident of Dawson Creek, re lack of accessibility at local public transit stops. Councillor Parslow. Sorry, your mic was still on.
Sorry, I move to receive for information.
Thank you. Second. Councillor Javetkov. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Councillor Earl opposed. 7.4, and this is our delegation, and a letter from Michelle Pickett, executor of the estate for Donna Stanek, 1820 Willowbrook. Do we deal with it now, or do we deal with it as an agenda item as presented under the correspondent? Thank you. So,
I move that we receive for information.
second, receive for information, second. Councillor Javetkov. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried.
Oh, sorry, is that, like, we won't discuss it?
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, I'm opposed.
Thank you. It's opposed. Councillor Dober, Councillor Earl, Councillor Kemp, opposed. It's carried, 4-3. Go ahead, Councillor.
Just a word of explanation. We're going to be dealing with this under mayor's business.
No, we dealt with it. This was dealing with it. Yeah, that's my
Oh,
question to administration.
Sorry. Okay. Sorry, sorry.
So do you want to,
Can I speak to
Yes.
this? I made the motion under the notion that we usually deal with delegation matters under the mayor's business.
No, that's why I asked administration, because they were here as a delegation, and because it was a correspondence agenda item, that we deal with it
Yeah.
here, so.
Yeah. So,
Procedurally, now, Council Brenda, if they want to,
Yeah, through your worship, if you wanted to call the vote again,
okay.
that would be
Thank
the
you.
correct procedure.
So this is the delegation from Michelle Pickett, and it was request that we provide direction to them and the error in terms of understanding when we would deal with it. So I would like to call the question once again. All those in favor? Councillor Javetkov, opposed? It's opposed is carried, so the motion is defeated to receive for information. So we will read, now we will deal with the addition of this agenda item for direction to staff. Councillor Dober.
I'll make a motion to receive a letter from Michelle Pickett for discussion. Is that, or,
No,
oh,
And we
or-
discuss it.
we have to provide direction, not discussion.
oh, I'll let somebody else talk.
Councillor Parslow.
I'd like to move that we repay the non-refundable deposit of $4,300 back to Michelle Pickett.
Do I have a seconder for the motion? For a second time, do I have a seconder for the motion?
I will second the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Wilbur. It's moved by Councillor Parslow, second Councillor Wilbur. Discussion. Go ahead, Councillor Parslow.
I'm making a number of assumptions here, but I thought I'd put the issue on the table so we get some resolve to it. And I'm of the old school that you always make motions in the positive, not the negative. So the $4,300, the non-refundable deposit, she's claiming that the city defaulted on the agreement by not fulfilling its obligations. I'd like to hear a response from the administration on that.
Administration? Brenda?
Yes, through your worship. Yes, the non-refundable deposit was initially put in place to cover the city's costs, legal, survey, land agent, advertising, et cetera. That was estimated at $60,000. And so I divided that by possibly 30 purchasers among the Chamberlain Park. So that was $2,000 of the non-refundable deposit. And the other $2,300 was in regards to the survey that was required for all purchasers. In regards to the offer to purchase agreement, we did have in place a 90 days after the signing, we were to complete the sale. And that there was a number of factors that caused delay on that. All of the purchasers have just agreed to extend that deadline. The alternative would be to remove the encroachments. So at this point, that's all I can say about the offer to purchase.
Thank you, Brenda. And so the $4,300 was divided amongst those who were interested in purchasing, as well as some of the costs of the process we went through for the resident. Thank you. Councillor Dober.
Thank you, Worship. Just knowing like what I know of this without going through the purchase agreement, and I'm not a lawyer, I would be fine like ending the purchase agreement, but I think if the deposit was initially set up, like Brenda said, to cover all those costs by the city and it was signed off on, like, I would have a hard time giving the deposit back. Like, I think that money's already spent. Like, it'd be different if that was money going towards the city, but it's not. So that's where I'm at on it, so.
Thank you. Oops, sorry, Councillor Javetkov, can you go ahead?
Yeah, so the deposit was based on the fact that there were a number of encroachments and the city had to take some action to identify the boundaries and that type of thing. So this property there was an encroachment on it, so it's part of the problem, and I don't see refunding the deposit there.
Thank you. Councillor Earl?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm of a mind with Councillor Dober. I condolences to Ms. Pickett and her family. I realize the unique circumstances of this, but that money has been spent. If they opt not to move ahead with the purchase, that is, I think, another conversation. But up to this point, I mean, once again, that $4,300 is going to fall on the taxpayers, and they didn't encroach on the park. So I appreciate Michelle coming to speak with us, and my condolences, and I appreciate the uniqueness of her circumstances, but that $4,300 is not ours to give back. It's been spent.
Thank you. Further comments? Honestly, we tried, this was a process we went through for 3 or 4 years, trying to engage with our residents who had identified some issues with those encroachments. It was a model for us to try to engage our community and find a solution, and we worked hard at it. Staff worked very hard on it. We spent lots of time on it, and the $4,300 wasn't a deposit. It was splitting up the costs that we, as the City of Dawson Creek, on behalf of the taxpayers, paid to try to move towards this resolution. And unfortunately, it was a shared cost for it. So I completely agree with it. I think it was money we spent to try to find a resolve, and that's where we moved with the $4,300. Thank you. So calling on the question that the money will not be returned?
No. He made it in the affirmative, so the money will be returned.
I'm sorry, you're right, yes. So on the question that we reimburse the $4,300, I'm calling the question. All in favor? Opposed? It's defeated. Councillor Earl, are you still
Nope.
speaking to it? Okay, go ahead, Councillor Parslow.
Thank you. Now, the third paragraph reads, in addition, we are aware of the encroachment on the property and have reason to believe that neighbouring properties may have similar encroachments on city property. Please elaborate on the time limit for the removal of these sheds, fences, etc. So a question for administration is, is there a time limit? If not, can there be?
Your Worship, I will ask Brenda. There certainly is a time limit. It has been expressed in the correspondence to each of the people we've been engaged with. But Brenda, if you could just elaborate on the date.
Yeah,
Thank you.
through your worship, the time limit to remove the encroachments was last September 30th. So at that time, if property owners chose not to purchase, they were to remove any encroachments by September 30th. All that was completed by all those property owners. So what I've mentioned to Michelle, is that if they chose to remove the encroachments, that the offer to purchase could be canceled. And as far as a timeline, she's wondering what council would like as a timeline set for that. I do have another example with that. Another property owner was purchasing 2 separate properties, and they've instead decided to just purchase one. And they will remove the encroachments from their property. They have promised to do this by mid-September, I believe.
Thank you. So the direction to staff, please, on the motion, on the deposit request.
On the deposit?
No.
request? On
Well,
the,
do we not have to provide direction that we defeated the motion that we were going to pay it? So are we assuming then that that means do we need to provide direction on that, or is that sufficient?
Yeah, the motion was to return the deposit,
Yeah.
and that was defeated, so.
So we need
Yeah.
no further direction on that?
Right.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Parslow, go ahead.
okay, so I'd like to move that what's the lady's name again?
Michelle?
Michelle.
Pickett?
Be directed that we require the encroachment to be removed by the end of September 2021.
Thank you. Do you have a seconder? Councillor Javetkov, discussion?
You're-
Go ahead.
During the presentation, she mentioned it was on skids and it would not be a problem, so I think we've given her about 6 weeks to do it.
Thank you. Councillor Dober?
You're struggling with my name
Yeah.
today. Thank you, Worship. I just, one quick question, like obviously the city has the purchase agreement, but they don't need any direction from us to get out of the purchase agreement? Like, it's able to be ended, or?
I think we're okay with that without a formal motion of
Okay.
council.
Thank you.
Your worship, the only thing I would suggest, and correct me, Brenda, if I'm wrong, if we're altering the date on what we've given other people to remove their encroachments, I think it would be incumbent that we remain consistent for anybody that has anything remaining, that these dates match up versus picking one person with one date, another person with another date.
So do we have that?
Yeah, through your worship, I can advise the other purchaser as well.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. 7.5, we have a letter from Guillaume Fortin, the General Manager of Diversified Transportation, in regards to their lease agreement. Councillor Javetkov?
I'll make a motion that we let them cancel the lease.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Thank you. Discussion? Go ahead, Councillor Javetkov.
Well, they're just using it for storage of their equipment, and if they don't require it anymore, we might be able to do something else with the property, so I don't see a problem with canceling it.
Thank you. Councillor Parslow?
Exactly.
Thank you. Councillor Earl? Sorry, Councillor Dober?
Thank you, Worship. I haven't seen the lease for this property, but I'm assuming all leases have an exit strategy, so is there not like a 30-day notice to get out of it, or is there something in the lease that allows them to get out?
No, when they entered the lease, there was no exit clause requested from the proponent or the leasee, I guess, on this particular one.
So what's the BC, like there's a BC standard, like is it just give us 30 days written notice and we'll end it? Like there's a...
That, your worship, I would have to check into. I think we would have to be very cautious. I think a number of our leases have cancellation clauses with different dates and times in them. So consistency, I would recommend, would be extremely important based on setting a precedent for council.
Thank you.
So,
Go ahead, Councillor Dober.
So are you saying like we should be careful ending it today because that could potentially set a precedence?
I would have to get legal advice on that, but certainly a contract is a contract has been our take as a council before, so I understand their request. We will execute on the direction given to us by mayor and council, but again, I would suggest most of our lease agreements have exit strategies in them. This one did not. It did for the city, but not for the leasee.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate where they're coming from too, not having worked here, but they also were a part of our community and, you know, obviously did well while they were here. So I think there's got to be, you know, whatever the BC standard is, which I know there is in that I think we should take that ground and follow what's recommended by I forget what the government committee is that looks after this, but there is one.
If, your worship, if that would make a difference in the decision matrix of council, we can find that out and bring this back, I think, in a relatively short period at this meeting. I don't think it should be that difficult to find the provincial standard, should there be one written.
Okay, Brenda?
Alternatively, the motion could just be made to cancel it in accordance with the BC regulations.
Regulation.
Okay.
So make that by way of an amendment?
So
Councillor
can I
Dober?
do that? I'll make that by way of an amendment,
Thank you.
yes.
Have a seconder to the amendment? Councillor Earl? Councillor Earl on the amendment?
Thank you. Hello. There we go. Thank you, Your Worship. I seconded the amendment because I do, my main concern isn't, I don't know what the dollar value of the lease is. It doesn't say so in the letter. I don't imagine it's a make or break amount. Oh, Brenda?
Yeah, through your worship, it is $14,000 annually.
Okay, so that's more than I thought it'd be, but, you know, I have no desire to penalize anybody, you know, if they don't have use for the property, you don't want to dangle them for $14,000. Having said that, I do worry that if we just, and this goes back to my time at the event center in corporate partnerships, after the Rage folded, there were a number of corporate clients that the city let out of their suites because they weren't happy with the situation, and it made my job as a director of corporate partnerships very difficult moving forward, because once you establish a precedent that contracts don't count if you can lean on council to discount them, it makes it very hard for people to do it. And as politicians, it feels good for us to say yes and want to work with people and want to appease people, but we do need to be mindful. So I think Councillor Dober's amendment is a reasonable compromise, and hopefully it doesn't result in us getting inundated with people who want us to revisit their particular leases after the fact.
Thank you. Further discussion on the amendment? You ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. And on the main motion, are you ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. Move to reports. Item 8.1. We have report number 21122 from the corporate officer regarding our Dawson Creek Library Board appointments. Councillor Earl?
I will move the recommendation that report number 21-122 from the corporate officer regarding 2021 Dawson Creek Municipal Library Board appointments be received. Further, that council approve an increase in the number of library board members to 9. Further, that council approve the following library board appointments. Sankalp I apologize. Chawla for a 3-month term ending November 30th, 2021. Brandon McKinnon for a 2-year term ending November 30th, 2023. And Jennifer Combres for a 1-year term ending November 30th, 2022.
Thank you. Second, Councillor Kemp. Discussion? Ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. Report number 8.2, we have report 21123 from the corporate officer, appointment of our bylaw enforcement officer. Councillor Javetkov.
Move that report number 21-123 from the corporate officer appointment of bylaw enforcement officers be received. Further, that the city's building inspector, Troy Greek, and BC SPCA employee, Lana Korbeck, be appointed as new bylaw enforcement officers for the city of Dawson Creek. Further, that the appointment of prior BC SPCA employee, Maureen Jacobs, be rescinded.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder?
I will second that, Your Worship.
Councillor Wilbur, thank you. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. Report number 8.3, item 8.3, report 21121 from the utilities manager regarding request for quotations for the 2021 electrical and instrumentation services for water and environmental. Councillor Javetkov.
Move that report number 21-121 from the utilities manager request for quotations 2021-33 electrical and instrumentation services, water and environmental be received. Further, that council award request for quotations 2021-33 electrical and instrumentation services, water and environmental to EPSCAN for the indicated term of September 1st, 2021 to August 31st, 2024 at the rates provided in the bid form with an option to renew for an additional year at the city's discretion.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Parslow, discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. 8.4, we have report number 21124 from the General Manager of Development Services regarding 102nd Avenue Bridge land exchange and parcel consolidation at the Nowak and Bergeron Youth and Cultural Center. Councillor Parslow.
I would like to move the report number 21-124 from the General Manager of Development Services, re 102nd Avenue Bridge, land exchange and parcel consolidation, brackets Nowak, be received and approved as written in this report.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Dover, discussion? Councillor Earl, did you want to speak? Okay, thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. 8.5, report number 21125 from the Development Services Manager regarding property at 1501 95th Avenue's owner request to move a city light post. Councillor Javetkov.
Move that report number 21-125 from the Development Services Manager, 1501 95th Avenue, owner request to move city light post be received. Further, the council directs staff to work with the owner to find a solution regarding the gate located at 1501 95th Avenue on the southeast corner of the property. Further, that the staff organize and coordinate gate alterations for RV access with a contractor, with the labor and material costs to be billed to the city, with costs not exceeding $5,000 plus GST, and following the City of Dawson Creek's purchasing policy. Further, that any costs involving with addressing and rectifying the pre-existing grading issues at 1501 95th Avenue that existed prior to the 15th Street reconstruction project be the sole responsibility of the owner.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Kemp, discussion. Councillor Parslow.
Well, it's good to work out mutually satisfactory solutions to problems. Just want to ask a question of administration. Are we creating something of a precedent here that we will regret because somebody doesn't light the placement of something that we now have a, are we putting ourselves in a vulnerable position for other requests, or are you satisfied that the reasons behind this are such that there was an error on behalf by the city in putting the light post there in the first place?
Go ahead, Blair.
Thank you, through your worship. I think this will be, in this discussion with the landowner, the homeowner, has occurred before. So they were not satisfied with moving the gate, but would like the light post moved. The light post is in the $10,000 to $12,000 range. So there is no curb drop. This is not a driveway per se. People have utilized it. They go over the curb and park their unit, RV unit, in their yard. So will it set a precedent? Again, I think it's up to council each and every time. They can make their determination and administration will execute it. I'm not aware that this would put you in a position that upon every request of this sort that it would mean that you would have to concur with it. But again, I would, if there's any differing opinion from administration, I would certainly encourage that now. But I think you are on solid ground here to give the direction per this recommendation without setting a precedent.
Thank you, Blair. Honestly, I think we've done millions of dollars worth of road work, sidewalks, pavement, and when we do the engineering, an opportunity or an issue may arise, and we try to work to resolve it. And I think this is our effort to be able to try to do that, and that's, I think, a positive step forward that we should consider. So, thank you. Thank you to administration. Ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. Item 9.1 is our bylaws, highway closure and removal of dedication bylaw and land sale bylaw number 4508 for the Sander Walkway. Councillor Jawetka.
I'll move adoption.
Thank you. Second. Councillor Kemp. Just all those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. Item 9.2 is our fees and charges amendment bylaw number 4509 for consideration of adoption. Councillor Jawetka.
I'll move adoption.
Thank you. Second. Councillor Dober. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. 9.3, we have report number 21118 from the corporate officer regarding our loan authorization, the capital paving program bylaw number 4503. For consideration of adoption. Councillor Jawetka.
I'll move adoption.
Second. Councillor Kemp, discussion. All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Councillor Dober opposed. We're 10:28. Let's take a 7-minute recess and we can have a quick break and we'll be back shortly. So we'll call ourselves back to order, and item 10 is Mayor's business. I want to give a quick update on a number of things I've been involved in over the last few weeks. The WestJet inaugural flight, providing direct service from Calgary to Dawson Creek, begins September 8th, and I'm going to be going down to Calgary on September 6th. I'm going to spend the 7th and 8th. I got a number of meetings set up with the industry folks in Calgary, and thought it was an opportunity. I really want to be on that inaugural flight to provide some opportunity to market and promote that flight as the first flight coming back into Dawson Creek. And so I thought I would take the opportunity to fly down and spend a day and a half, and I got a number of meetings set up with the industry folks in Calgary, and I use the opportunity to promote some of that energy sector stuff in the region. Had a call and meeting with Susan Yurkovich, the CEO president of the BC Council of Forest Industries, and Susan reaches out about once a quarter, and just catching up on forestry and forestry sector initiatives in the province, and it's always very, very good to connect with Susan, and we had about an hour chat on the various initiatives that the BC Council of Forest Industries are working on. Been very concerned with the volatility, certainly of pricing, how strong it is, and but the fires create concerns on fiber, and the certainty of it. The softwood agreement with the states is still a big issue for them that they're dealing with, and so it was just very good to catch up and have a conversation with Susan. I participated on a panel with the First Nations LNG Alliance about 2 weeks ago. I was asked to sit on the panel, and Karen Ogden, president of the First Nations LNG Alliance, and myself, a councillor out of, I think, Burns Lake area, and one of the chief councillors from over there as well. And I think there's about 30 people signed into the 1-hour virtual panel, and we talked a lot about First Nations partnerships, as well as the development of the industry and the implications of it as it relates to LNG. The Diamond Gas executive, the CEO of Diamond Gas, Sunichi Seo, was in town about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. They're the partners with Ovintiv on the Cutbank Ridge Partnership, who are developing the assets in the upstream here with Diamond Gas, the principals of Diamond Gas being Mitsubishi. And so they're putting the pipeline in process, connecting this Dawson plant owned by North River Midstream, as well as the plant owned by Ovintiv, Pembina, at the Tower location, and they're connecting that into the Coastal GasLink project at the Wild Lake Compressor. So we did a tour with the Midwest Pipelines. They're the folks building the pipeline, this 25-kilometer pipeline, a 36-inch line, building it, connecting it from the processing facilities in and around our region into Wild Lake. And we got a chance to tour the project with them, and really promote the region with Diamond Gas, and it was a really good afternoon. Participated in the Fall Fair Parade, and congratulations to the Rotary Club and all who organized the parade and the exhibition and the fair and rodeo. It was a really terrific job, I think, in terms of executing in a very short time, 6 weeks in which to put that event together, and crowds and participation looked really good. I was really pleased to see the participation at the parade, and certainly the grandstands each night were pretty good attendance. So congratulations to all and everybody in attendance, and to the Fair Board, the executive of the Exhibition Association, and the Rotary Clubs for helping put all of that together for the community and the region. We hosted the Collaborative Partnership Barbecue. The council and the co-hosted it with the Soto First Nations, the tent event at the east end of the grandstands on Thursday night. We had about 160, I think, in attendance. And it was a really great event, really good attendance by the folks that were there, and very positive, and certainly the Soto First Nations were really pleased with the participation and attendance, and a great opportunity to promote and some fellowship amongst our region and communities with the industry. And I really think has been very beneficial for us to be able to have that event and support the rodeo, as well as support and promote our community. We had major industry representatives from Calgary, lots of local business and First Nations. So really appreciated everybody from council who were able to attend that night and support it, as well as the Soto First Nation were well represented. So with that, I'll close this. I don't know if anyone has any comments or questions about any of those items. The next item I want to deal with is item 10.2, and it's I've had some complaints and concerns raised to me about the speed of the traffic traveling on 15th Street in and around the bridge and the park at the Dawson Creek Dog Park location on between 105th and 107th Avenue, and it is a 30-kilometer speed zone through there, and honest to goodness, I think it's not well appreciated or known that it's a 30, and the traffic gets going through there. And I've had some concerns raised by the residents in the area. And due to the park, there's a walking trail crossing there at 15th Street, and it is a 30-kilometer zone, and I wasn't even aware of it until I did do a little look at it. So I'd like to propose the following motion for Council's consideration: that Council direct administration to explore the capital and operating costs of installing a speed reader board between 105th and 107th Avenue at 15th Street for both the north and southbound traffic in an effort to promote traffic safety measures for this area. Councillor Kemp, thank you. discussion? Councillor Dober?
Thank you, Worship. I appreciate you doing this because I walk that trail almost every day and there's a lot of traffic that flies by, but I don't think that it's actually, the signs are posted that it's 30 kilometers. I don't think it's very well signed, that whole area. Like it has the 50 signs, but it doesn't have the 30. So I'm just wondering if we should maybe start off by putting 30-kilometer and playground signs up, because there's also a crosswalk there, and then there's the golf there, plus the dog park, and there's a lot of people around there, and I don't think it's very well signed to begin with.
Yeah, it's not greatly signed, but I think there is a sign for the northbound traffic, the southbound traffic for the 30.
But not
there's
the
not for the
northbound.
northbound.
So maybe, I don't know if we have those signs just laying around and it's a little bit more affordable to put that up first.
Blair?
Your worship, through you, there is one for southbound traffic going. I know there's a 30K. Now, the northbound traffic, I believe there is, I'm not sure, to be honest with you on that. As with your motion, we could look at the options, the capital and operational costs of the speed reader. It would be 2 speed reader boards, as I understand it.
Yeah.
We would need both a northbound and a southbound. But at that point, I will clarify the 30K sign going north. I just don't think there is one.
I'm good to expand or explore it. I just don't know what the costs are, and that was my intent, to just explore that. But I'm absolutely good if you want to amend it to also enhance the regular signage there for the speed zone.
Yeah, it was my thoughts. Like I go by there and it's not very well signed. So maybe if we had initially started off by just checking how it's signed and getting it done properly, maybe we don't need to spend the money on the speed reader signs. Maybe that'll solve the problem.
Like I say, I have no idea what those costs are, so.
Yeah, me neither.
Councillor Earl?
Yeah, so this was news to me. I honestly, I don't know if it had to do with the proximity of that area to the high school. So I assumed as you're driving, the school zone, or the 30-kilometer-an-hour speed limit is applicable to the school area, and as you're driving away, you assume you're out of it. But no, this is news to me. Thank you for bringing it up, Your Worship, and I'm fine to pursue a remedy because, as you noted, there's a walking trail, dog park, and it's used for the Frisbee golf as well. So probably a good idea. But yeah, news to me.
Thank you.
Much to my embarrassment.
Councillor Parslow?
Thank you. To staff, we have a speed reader, at least we've had it for many years. I don't know if it's still there. As you approach the city from the south side on 17th Street, that's still there, isn't it?
Yeah.
Are there any other speed readers in place in the city?
Kevin? Sorry.
Yeah, through your worship. So we've got the one on 17th. There is one on 17th North, I believe, still, as you leave Alaska and head north. There is a temporary one on 15th currently, right near 97th Avenue. So we've got a few, and we've moved some of them around in the community occasionally. So those are the ones that come top of mind.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Juekoff?
Yeah, I was just going to suggest when you're doing the assessment on the costs, consider whether you can move a speed reader from somewhere else, because the one on 110th has been there for years, and it's all local traffic there. So I think the people have got it drilled into their head that the speed limit is 30, I hope. But that one might be able to be moved. Anyways, it's just a consideration.
Thank you. Councillor Dober, one last time.
Can I just, thanks. Can I make an amendment to,
Yeah.
if while the city staff is looking into this, it's not signed properly, that in the meantime, we do put the proper 30-kilometer-hour signs up before, as well as get this?
Thank you. Devin, seconder for the amendment? Councillor Earl? On the amendment, any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. And on the main motion, you ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. And item 10.3, we had the Community Energy Association presentation, and I think the request was that we would have our administration work with them to explore potential opportunities of benefits to the city administration. Blair, Kevin, do you have any insight into that for us in terms of the building code and potentially the opportunities of engaging?
So through your worship, with the step code, so Bill is definitely aware, and like you had mentioned, we are aware of the step code coming. We've done some preliminary work. We've chatted with Fort St. John to see where they're at as well. I know Bill is going to reach out and meet with Gaetan either this week or next to get some additional information. The challenges to date have been just ensuring that there is going to be the resources in the area to perform the tests that are required to see if the buildings achieve the certain energy efficiencies and things like that. So that's a process, and that's going to need to come, chicken and the egg, which comes first. But as these homes start to be built and there's a need for these energy advisors, then assumably people will start to fill that void and that will occur. But yeah.
To me, the one comment that was made about the grant that might be available for us to help purchase some of that equipment for the air testing and things like that, and would that be beneficial for us to have in the region to be able to assist with the construction or the modification of buildings, and should that be something that we look and explore and inquire into? And I just use that as a one item. Councillor Dober?
You said what I was going to.
Okay.
Yeah.
So perhaps a motion, we direct administration to bring us back some implications to the benefits of us potentially partnering with the Canadian Energy Association. Councillor
I'll move
Wilbur?
that motion, your worship.
Councillor, thank you, Councillor Wilbur. Second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. CAO officer's operational report update.
Excuse me, through your worship, there was one
Oh,
more.
I'm sorry. Yes, there was one more. My apologies. The delegation, Michelle had asked us to look at creek remediation as well as part of her request when she was here, and I missed that in terms of her report and the request we dealt with on the funding. And so I think at this point, doing any kind of remediation or stabilization, slope stabilization, falls completely within the ministry's purview. And so I think what we need to do is respond by indicating that it is our intention, hopefully, to work with the ministry on some of that creek stabilization as a whole in a strategy for the community, and that we would direct administration that we will follow that up with the ministry as part of that entire process. And I don't think we can take it on ourselves because it's outside the purview of the city. Councillor Parslow.
I would submit that as a motion. But can I just, Ministry of the Environment, is it?
Ministry of Environment, I think, yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for that. So we will respond to Michelle that we can't do that work, and that we will follow through to the Ministry of Environment as it relates to the entire stabilization discussion we've had. Do you have a seconder? So Councillor Parslow moves second. Councillor Javetkov.
Your worship, just for clarity, it is the Ministry of Forest Lands and Natural Resources that deal with that.
Okay.
The issues we would need to get in for creek stabilization.
Appropriate ministry we'll get to.
And we are on that.
Thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. 11-1, Blair, an RCMP update.
All right. Just a quick update on a number of things we've been working on. Unfortunately, Staff Sergeant Worrell cannot be with us. You will recall in one of his updates to yourselves, he spoke about the community-assisted policing through use of recorded evidence. And that was where they talk about many homes have video cameras or security cameras in their homes. And many times there are areas in the country now that have engaged those residents, if they would like to sign up, for the use for the RCMP, to be able to access that video if there's an occurrence in a region or in a neighborhood. He raised that. He wanted me to let you know that the detachment is working on that here in Dawson Creek, and we expect to see an uptake on that and initialization of this program for the city of Dawson Creek coming soon. It does not mean, even if you sign up and you have a camera and footage, that you must relinquish that footage to the RCMP. This is a voluntary if you sign up. So really not a lot more to add on that, other than to say he had raised it in one of his presentations to yourselves and ourselves here. And he wanted me to provide an update to let you know that they are working on it and trying to move ahead on that. So. The next one I wanted to touch on was there is a new federal statutory holiday that has been put forward for September 30th, Truth and Reconciliation Day. There are, if you read it, it is not the clearest direction from the federal government's release, I would not think. It speaks to federal employees, federal. There are collective agreements, though, that in many cases cover all statutory holidays, including newly implemented ones. As I read our collective agreement with CUPE, we are captured in that. So September 30th will be a statutory holiday at the city, as we have gone through the collective agreement, looked at that. It is interesting. This, I will speak from history. I was part of a government that implemented a statutory holiday for British Columbia. These do not come without cost, regardless of how good the cause is. I want to be very clear. I'm not debating the cause, but this is a very, very quick new statutory holiday to be put forward for our country. But we will be honoring it because we will honor the collective agreement that both parties have signed. So, the next one. We have, for the last 2 years, due to COVID, not put forward a new tourism guide for the city of Dawson Creek. So the last one we had developed was 2019, and due to no travel, due to COVID and so on, it didn't make sense that we would spend the tens of thousands of dollars, which is money wisely spent when we have a traveling public. But it looks as though that the world is returning to some sense of normalcy. I say that and then get corrected as soon as I hear the next newscast, but I think it is time, and I'm just bringing this forward for council more for information and discussion. We do plan on moving forward with a new magazine, tourism magazine, and it is a time for reflection of yourselves, mayor and council. Is this something we would like done yearly as we used to? Is it better to do it every second year? Just really, I'm not asking for a decision today. But if you'll turn your mind to that, I will bring a full report. But I wanted to plant the seed. It is time. I don't think we want to be handing out a 2019 travel brochure in 2022, which is our next real tourist season coming forward. So any questions on those three, I would gladly answer. And then I have one other I'll touch on.
Your worship, I have one question for staff.
Yes, go ahead, Councillor Wilbur.
Regarding the tourism magazine, is it possible for us to look at something that maybe is more generic and not year-based, so that we keep costs low, but it's something we can reuse every year? I'm just wondering, I know in the past, it's kind of been based on each year, like you said, 2019 was our last one. But I've seen in my travels to the island here, many communities have a generic tourism book. So it's just something they use year after year. If something major changes, then they update it. But it's just kind of a nice piece that tells you about the community, but it's not dated.
Through your worship, that will be part of what I will bring back. But again, I really wanted to present it today so that ideas such as Councillor Wilbur just brought forward can be part of the discussion as we move forward with our magazine decisions. So,
Perfect. Thank you.
all right.
Councillor Carswell.
Well, just to add to what Councillor Wilbur just said, which I kind of like that, but maybe it should synchronize with the election sequence, you know what I mean? Because if we did it in April, we might have I'm just making this up, a new mayor, but the mayor's always in that, right? You know what I mean? So could it sync perhaps be on a 4-year basis, just for reflection? You've just thrown it out as a
Yes.
topic, but there's another reflection.
Through your worship and to Councillor Parslow, that is one consideration that has crossed my mind as well. Should we decide that we want to move forward for a new 2022. We do have elections in the fall. There will be a different mayor and council, possibly a new mayor and council. Your worship, your worship. No. So at that time, there may be that discussion. But again, just a number of items that I would ask you to turn your mind to, and I will bring something forward through our tourism sector for future discussion on this. At the next council meeting, this will be there, so.
Thank you,
Okay.
Blair.
All right.
Councillor Dover?
Just one thing, Blair, back in the day when those magazines were created, we were, I think actually me and yourself were on the Chamber of Commerce, but it was a break-even project. Like the person that did it up actually profited from selling ads and everything in it. So how has it changed now that it's costing the city money to produce it?
We will bring the costs back associated. It is definitely through advertising is a significant portion of that. We did receive funding from NDIT to help publish this. So we will look at what options we have available as far as that goes with our tourism partner, being Spectra, who delivers tourism on behalf of the city right now.
Okay.
And that will be part of the report as we present it.
Thank you.
You know, the one thing to me I will add is that it is the one tool, I certainly use it, both that community magazine and the tourism magazine as part of our economic development. And so it's the one thing that we have to be able to utilize when we're meeting with developers or meeting with people potentially looking to come to the city, that I really lean heavily on that magazine. And is very helpful, I think, to Shaylee's point is, you know, we want to update it now with the airport and WestJet and all those things so that it's dynamic in terms of what and how our community is impacted. And we want to make sure it's kept current as best as possible, because, like I say, I use it a lot in terms of when I'm meeting with potential folks coming to the city and wanting information about the city. It's the one tool that is helpful. Thanks, Blair.
Just two other quick things, Your Worship, if I could. First, I would like to just extend a thank you to our staff who on the weekend, you know, with the heavy rains we've seen the last couple of times, obviously a challenging time, not just for our city. I think if you've seen pictures of Fort St. John or any other community when they're face that kind of deluge with water coming down, there's always challenges. But Kevin, to you and your staff, I want to say thank you on behalf of the residents and businesses of our city. We will stay on top of this. We have had some unique weather patterns lately, having been here for a significant amount of years now. They seem to be getting a little more intense, but just a thank you on behalf of everybody, Kevin. Also, I just want to clarify one thing. There was a letter earlier in the agenda, 7-2, from Step Up and Ride. I think there was a significant misunderstanding from Mona in the letter she wrote. Her implication was that if we gave them $100,000, they could look after all transit in Dawson Creek. That was not the case. That was not the discussion that I had with Brenda and Mona when the mayor and I met with her. To read that it is mind-boggling to me to understand the offer, that was not the offer. The offer was, what would $100,000 mean to Step Up and Ride if the city was able to look at delivering that for their services? Could they enhance their services? So I'm not sure why the letter came in the form it did, but I was not going to miss the opportunity to clarify that I did not indicate that they should look after everything BC Transit delivers now for $100,000. We spend close to $500,000 as a city on BC Transit. So if there was a misunderstanding, I'll apologize here. I don't think there could have been, but I wasn't going to let the letter go unaddressed at this point. With that, Your Worship, that's all I have.
Thanks, Blair. Diary, anything? Consent calendar, could I have a motion for the consent? Councillor Kemp, second. Councillor Dober, all in favor? Opposed, carried. Anybody want to lift anything from the consent calendar? Strategic priorities, anything to update? Blair?
Nothing at this point, Your Worship.
Thank you. So we need a motion at this point then to recess to our closed meeting, and the agenda items 4151 to do with minutes. 8.1, Section 91 is the acquisition or distribution of a land. 8.2 is labor relations. 9.1, acquisition or distribution or expropriation of land. Agenda item 9.2 is Section 91E is the acquisition or distribution of land. Agenda item 10.1, Section 91K is negotiations. and related discussions respecting the proposed provision of municipal services. So if I can have a motion to reconvene to close, Councillor Javetkov, second Councillor Dober. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. So we'll have 5 minutes and allow our New Harvest to get their equipment, and we'll be back into close very shortly.